Well, it is an amazing day. It is supposed to storm before today is over with. They're calling for some pretty heavy rains. But before that happens, we have a pond repair job to go look at for Dirt Perfect. Let's go get this reviewed. Well, here we are. I have reviewed this potential pond repair with the customer. And I'm here to tell you, this pond used to be really nice. As a kid, I have spent a little bit of time around this pond. And now, as you can see, it needs a lot of TLC. Yes, it has been dug out and drained. The reason that it was dug out and drained is because it had a leak. So we will walk you through what this homeowner wants and his ultimate hopes and dreams. So as we get down here to the bottom, you guys can actually see there's still water coming out of there. The reason there is still water coming through there is because this pond is spring fed, and the spring is actually to the right of the home, right down in the trees, probably 150 yards, maybe 200 from where we're standing. But this pond leaked, as stated just a moment ago, and I think you guys, even if you don't know dirt, can understand why this pond leaked. There is some decent clay down in there, but there's quite a bit of rock on the back slope, and there are tons and tons of roots that come through / in, and there is actually a root in this grass that comes out pretty darn low right up in there. So I believe the reason why this pond leaked is because they liked the fact that there were trees on the pond dam. It shaded the pond, but trees are not good for ponds. Those roots naturally go to water because trees need water to survive. So with all that being said, I believe if I can cross this ditch without falling, I believe the proper solution for fixing this, again, you can see the roots. The property line is right here through this orchard grass or whatever it is, and to the left. This is a property corner, and then it kind of runs at an angle down to that ditch and all that overgrowth right through there. With as many tree roots as there are in this dam, it's pretty obvious how many there are when you come over here and you actually look at where the core should be. You guys can see the roots coming out of the bank down there, up here, down low. Those are little roots down low, but there's a decent one. You can see it right there is the one I was talking about that was in the grass. That tree has since fell over since they dug this out and essentially killed the tree with digging the roots out. So I believe the tree on the corner created the leak. They dug it out right here to drain it. And now this homeowner wants to make it a pond again, but he has some different goals in mind. As stated, the spring is up that ditch, right through that willow tree, which is that thin leafed one over there on the other side of what used to be the pond. So step number one is to figure out, do we have good dirt on this hillside? The reason we need to figure out if there's good dirt on this hillside, I don't want to take this potential customer's money and fix that leak for that tree's root system or that tree's root system to just create a new leak over here on this side of the dam. So my thought process is come in here, essentially clear out the pond with the dozer, shove as much of the stuff as far back as we can without getting into the property line or messing up his driveway, and get the current existing dam cut out and moved right down there in that area. Yeah, it's going to be a really big pile of dirt, and it's going to be difficult to stay off of the driveway set point and the property line set point. But to me, that makes the most sense. Then come up in here, strip the topsoil off. This is all assuming that we have good dirt under the ground here. Assuming we have good dirt there, strip that topsoil. Since that's the property line, we can't do much with the dam here, but we can cut a core in right through here. And essentially, as we take dirt, good dirt, out of there and build this core, which is going to go across and then turn and end up by that rock pile that we walked by. It's not going to be as tall as the rock pile, but about halfway up that rock pile, level with the driveway, so we can gain some water depth. We'll explain that here in a minute. But start our core in the existing dam, if you will, knowing that we're going to have roots and stuff, but we can cut those roots off and put in a good core through here to ensure that this corner doesn't leak. And then as we carve out this good dirt, again assuming it's there, we can actually gain water surface, make the pond bigger. Right now I would assume this is about 1/4 of an acre. I think we're going to get close to maybe 0.4 of an acre. Maybe by the time we're done we might double the size, but it really all depends on how much dirt's here. The next thing that would be nice, since it is spring fed and the spring being up in that ditch, I'll show you that here in a second, if we can get this core cut in and get this elevation up a couple of feet and tie it in more in this area here, that would allow this water level to stay at top of dam currently, and you can kind of envision where that takes you, which is essentially the center of that rock pile, and the water would go all the way up that ditch line to the spring, having all the dirt right here off the side of the pond. We don't have a very far distance to push it, but as we come around here, it'll give you guys a really good explanation as to why coming up into this ditch makes sense. Walk through the briars and all the good stuff. So if we come right here, you guys can see that dam right out there. So the top of that dam is never water level. It's always 2 foot below that, especially since it's going to be spring fed. So about right in here is that water level, which doesn't quite make it over there to that ditch. So if we can open this up on this back side, bring that dam 2 foot higher, that will allow us to carve out the bottom side of this ditch and get water essentially all the way up into this corner where you see the previous owners tried to make a walk bridge across, something to get from the home across to this side of the pond. Right now you can see the water that's coming down from the spring, but if we can get a couple of feet to 3 feet of water in there, it'll come all the way up this ditch to about right here where you start seeing some rock structures. And then if you come a little bit further, the elevation starts to pick up really fast and you get up here. So instead of having from the spring 100 yards of ditch to get the water to your pond, you're going to have 100 feet of ditch. So all this could be cleaned off. The rocks end up holding the ditch in place and keeping this really nice, re-slope this hillside to where it can be maintained, and your pond essentially comes all the way up into this point. To me, that also grows the surface water of the pond. It mitigates when you have hard rains and your spring is running really hard and fast. It mitigates the amount of wash that you're going to have to maintain down through here, because it has a much shorter path before it hits water that's going to slow it down, and then essentially just the level of the pond changes. To me, that's going to get our water level probably closer to the base of his little access that he has here. The water level would be here and he could still drive right above it, and if we need to cut that back a little bit we can long term. But as we come down here to this bottom side, making this pond a little bit deeper starts to make a whole lot of sense because of the space we can grow here. Again, remember, bringing that pond dam up 2 feet, it's going to tie into that bank, which essentially means we don't have to carve out much dirt here before that water really starts to gain surface area all the way over to this corner. And we have all the way over to there that we can use this dirt and create a nice flat area right here for future use. And then the pond would essentially grow to darn near it where I'm standing, which is another 50 feet of water. I'm not the guy who recommends things that I don't think will work. So I talked to the homeowner about that expansion, and he said, hey, the more surface area I can get, the better. And let's be honest, it's not going to cost any more money, because we got to take that dirt out of there. Once that half section of dam is pushed out of the way, we need that dirt to actually build the dam. So we're moving that dirt anyway. Why not ensure that water level can go over further, and that gives us more depth of dirt that we can utilize and more pond for essentially $0. Now let's go down here to the backside. All right, so this is where things get a little tricky. He cannot maintain this at all because it's such a steep slope and such a steep slope here. The tricky part about this corner is that's the property line, and it runs up to that fence post right there. Realistically, to make this easier to maintain, we really need to go out into that yard, over top of that pipe, and just slope that bank down to where that pipe just sticks out of the ground there, up to that tree. I don't know what kind of tree that is, but up to that bigger tree that you see through that bush right there, to ensure that that slope is nice and slow. They can actually maintain their side yard better, and he can maintain his side of this dam, and everybody's would tie in nicely. But in order for it all to work, that back slope would need to tie in down through there, come to the base of this tree, and circle back out all the way to the driveway. This tree would have to be removed, that tree would have to be removed, that cherry tree and that little tree would have to go away, and round that out all the way to the driveway, all the way up to that oak tree on the corner, and then 100% of this can be maintained. And I know for you guys sometimes it's hard to tell while I'm out here reviewing a job, boots on the ground. I will go back to the laptop on Hunt Stand and draw this out for you guys so you can better understand it. My biggest concern is there's a lot of foliage. You can see there's a lot of canopy here. I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this area as I draw it out. And I can't remove trees off of a Google Earth image to be able to show you guys the ground. So that's going to be a little bit harder. But as we come around to this corner, it gives you a pretty good visual. You can see how erratic that dam is and why they can't maintain it. So if you can just visualize 2 foot taller, about the center point of that rock pile, tying in right up there at the driveway, curling around, coming down through here, a nice slope all the way to the driveway, a nice slope all the way through that tree, and as you go a little bit further, a nice slope all the way to that log that you see down there that the homeowner has cut. And that will ensure he can come in here with a mower and just mow all of this all the way around, which ensures one other thing. If you do end up with a leak, you're maintaining it. You're gonna catch that leak when it's just a seep, opposed to when you can't maintain these things. You might come out here one day and instead of that being dug out by an excavator, it might blow out. The other thing that I recommended to this owner, this was the emergency overflow here. Essentially what an emergency overflow does is that dam is higher than water level, but this emergency overflow is 10 inches or so, maybe 12, below the top of dam. Water level comes up, it spills out into this area, goes down to the ditch and down through there. Well, since it's spring fed, as we stated, that water level stays up, and this trickled almost 100% of the time. So this was wet 100% of the time. Well, you can't get in here and maintain that at all. So I recommended we come in somewhere over in there, maybe even right where that cut is. That cut's going to disappear, but we shoot us an overflow pipe straight to the ditch down at the bottom of the hill to ensure when this spring keeps this water level pretty consistent and we get one of those 5-inch rains, it goes in the pipe, under the ground, and all the way down there to the ditch, and all this is still maintainable because it doesn't stand wet 100% of the time. So hopefully that gives you guys a really good view of what I have to quote here. Like I said earlier, I will go back to the laptop and show you guys the layout of my thought process here. All right, here we are at our next pond renovation review. This is a bird's eye view for you guys to understand the boots on the ground. What I can show you guys here for sure, I know I said in a little bit earlier in the video, I'm not for sure if we're going to be able to see much because of the canopy, but this is the current pond. We'll draw this shape out so you guys can see what we have today. And as we work our way around here, you saw that this pond is it's been drained. It's got a bunch of weeds. It's used as a burn area right now. But what we have is essentially 0.1 acres today. That's current pond. And the hope is to repair this pond to where it will actually hold water, not leak. You did see in the previous portions of this video, right here is where they dug out the pond to drain it. That's the current drain. It also essentially doubled as an emergency overflow, which was just a little bit off of where they dug, right about here. And that comes down and around and feeds this ditch. You'll also see here this red line right here. That red line is the property line for this home. So we do have a couple of set points. We're hopeful to have a really good conversation with this customer, or with this homeowner here, which is not the homeowner that's having us do the work. I'll explain that here in a minute. But the current pond, as we know, it leaks, 100% guaranteed. So what we have to do, in my opinion, yes, I'll have to run this by DP to confirm that he feels the same. But the dam today runs from there over to here, runs away from the property line. And it's not a big dam. It's kind of a short, slow sloping on the inside, but very steep on the backside dam. And as you guys saw from the ditch, the red line there that we're getting ready to cross, that ditch that they dug to drain this pond had a whole lot of roots in it. I believe the reason why they're leaking is because of all the roots from the trees. So this is current dam. And what I believe we need to do is come in here and take all of this dam out. Hopefully we have enough space from this ditch, and we can clog this ditch up while we're working on it and then open it back up. But I am hopeful that in this area here, we can take all of the current dam's dirt and remove it and push it downhill, so that when we start to put the new dam in, we'll call this staging bad dirt. Let's just call that bad dirt because it's leaking. So if we stage the bad dirt in that area, what we do have, assuming that we come up in here and dig test holes and confirm that this is good usable dirt, we have all of this area that we can utilize for good dirt. Why is that beneficial, you might ask? The reason that is, let's call that food plot. The reason, we're going to call that good dirt for now. The reason that is very beneficial is this homeowner also would like for this pond to be a little larger. So if we remove the old dam, get it down here piled up out of the way, and we find out that all of this is good dirt, and just so everyone knows, I always quote these jobs as though there is good dirt on site, unless the homeowner knows for sure that there is not good dirt and we have to bring dirt in. The reason we quote it that way, it is a lot cheaper to use dirt on site than it is to pay for trucking to bring good dirt in. This pond would be exponentially more expensive if we had to bring dirt in to build the proper core and dam to get, you can't guarantee a pond that's going to hold water, but to get closer to what you feel like is a guarantee that a pond is going to hold water. So assuming this green box is good usable dirt, what that allows us to do is off of this side of the pond, we can bring all of this over start carving out that dirt, and essentially grow this pond. And I know I'm drawing squares here, and nothing's ever square, but we can grow this pond by, as soon as I get done clicking this out here, we can grow this pond by, the number is 0.07 acres. So almost a tenth of an acre is what we can grow the pond. We're going to call that pond growth. Well, if I can click save button. So you guys can see the pond really starts to get exceptionally nice and larger body of water that is usable for this homeowner. And if this homeowner was to be a nice neighbor and allow us, when we go to put the new back slope in, let's talk about the core first. We would bring that core all the way over to this corner and run it in the front third of this this dam, and front third of the slope that we're going to create. So essentially that core would run right through here, and we also want to extend that all the way over to the driveway, and I'll explain that here in a minute as well. But this would be the core, or keyway. Some people call them keyways too. It's potato at that point in time. But what bringing that core over both sides allows us to do is also increase the height of this dam. The reason we want to increase the height of this dam, as you guys saw in the video, there is a spring right here. There's a building that captures that spring, and then it comes on down this ditch line and runs right into the pond and then right out of that ditch that they dug to drain the pond. So we also have the ability to grow this pond in this direction as well, almost to the spring. As you guys saw previously in the videos, about 100 feet from that spring right there. So if we come back to about here, square that off, run along this backside contour. It's actually a nice slow slope on this backside. They have a four-wheeler trail. You guys saw me get caught up in the briars there. So if we roll that around, not only do we have essentially a tenth of an acre that we can add on that right-hand side, if we close all this off, we can also add another 0.05. So now we're getting to 0.15 essentially of adder to this pond, and it starts to really take I think it's a nice shape that allows this homeowner to have a couple of different options. You guys saw in the video there were some telephone poles laying on the ground right over here. That's where the original owner of this cabin was trying to cross the ditch that the spring has created over the years. And there's a really nice rock structure that wraps all the way around this cabin on the backside and gets within about 10 feet of this area on the cabin here. So the further we can get this water up in this ditch, you start to see that there's some really good scenery that you can create with just adding water to the area. And I believe we can do that by simply adding 2 feet to the current elevation of this dam. Now what all that comes down to have a maintainable dam, and I state maintainable dam because all of these trees is what has created the leak in this pond. You saw the roots in the ditch. The trees, they need water to grow, so their root systems are going to go towards the water. It's just nature. It's going to happen. So if we can get this dam 2 to 3 feet taller, add the body of water on the right, add the body of water on the left, get this neighbor to have a really good conversation with us and allow us to get some dirt into their yard, essentially what we're going to be able to do is create a awesome back slope on this that allows these joining a property owners to maintain this entire area. And I'm going to draw this kind of large because we won't come quite all the way down to our spoil pile, but we will come over and come around. And what that's going to allow is the removal of the trees, and then also the establishment of a proper dam that will hold this body of water exceptionally well. and allow these property owners to maintain it together. And I'll explain that here in just a second. I'm going to make this one a different color. Did I add that? Yep, I added that. If I make this one, that's a little bit different color. Let's see how that works. We're going to call that back slope. Yes, that looks like a rather large back slope, but it's not. But what we have today, I know it's kind of hard to tell on video, but this is a really steep hillside. And when he brings his UTV right up this property line, he actually spins out on this hillside. It's so steep. So if we can fade some of this back slope down into this adjoining property owner's corner, it's actually going to make this home's maintenance and mowing and the appearance of the property so much better by just adding some dirt into this corner, running it through the property line all the way down to this point, which is the ditch, and bringing it around up to this top side, because all of this is hard to maintain as well. So essentially we've got 10 or so trees in this area that we need to remove to mitigate the risk of them growing roots into the pond. And then we really need to talk to this homeowner about this tree here to confirm if we can remove it as well, because it would be really good if we can get rid of this tree. So to give you guys a better understanding of how we would go about carving this out, the first thing that Mike's going to have to do is blow the dam out. That's going to have to happen. I don't know if we've got enough room here to stage all that dirt. If we don't, we've always got Bubba Dump, and we can transfer the dirt over here. You guys saw there was a flat and a yard area over here. We'd have to carry it across the driveway twice, but that's okay if we need to do that. But carving this out, taking it away, assuming all of this is good dirt, that allows us to push dirt downhill with gravity in our favor and ensure that we have a short path to travel. Give you guys another arrow here so you can see how we would move that dirt. And then we will take the next step here. Come on. All right, so that's the direction we would move the dirt, which is essentially downhill, gravity in our favor. We would carve that out, and it would just slow slope shallower and shallower and shallower, and we would contour this in. This is the high spine of the hill. It's not quite at the water's edge. It's kind of off of it a little bit. So we've got quite a bit of elevation that we can change this and not impede on this homeowner whatsoever. So we definitely want to keep this far enough off of the back side that if trees ever did grow in here and make it leak, we didn't make it leak in their backyard. We would then come down here once we start to establish this core and we start bringing up this inside slope. This spoil pile from the bad portion of the dam could be utilized for most of this back slope. The back slope doesn't really matter quality of dirt wise. What matters is where the yellow line core is and this inside slope. So we would then be able to come down here with the dozer and start pushing this dirt that we would have from our spoil piles right up and into the back slope of this pond dam. Draw one more arrow for you guys here so you can understand the push direction. We could hit it from a couple of different angles. And yes, this isn't gravity in our favor. It would be uphill pushing, but most of your back slopes when you build a pond, you're uphill pushing anyway. But if we could stage that dirt here, that ensures that we don't have to bring this dirt all the way down and around and cross over this property very much. We could actually just start pushing uphill and bring this dirt up in on this back slope, and then any extra dirt that we would need, we could still bring from up here, but we would have the new dam established and we could bring it right across that dam and start fading in this back slope in this area here. So hopefully that gives you guys a really good overview of how I'm going to bid this job. This will be a job for 2024, assuming we get it, so it'll be a while before you see it on DP's channel. But this is always the first steps to get to the point where we have this job to be able to video for you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed, and as always, like, comment, subscribe.